Hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to Mechanical Muse Live, where I talk about all sorts of cool things from comic books to aliens to video games, and especially about role playing games. And in particular, Cool Name RPG, the role playing game that we've created to give away to the world, and that we're going to give you our latest design journal update on tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. So we always start out with our mail call. I have a very cool mail call to share tonight that you guys are going to like. So you see this. This doesn't look like much, right? It doesn't, because I have to assemble it still. Assemble it, paint it. But what that is a copy of this. Now, what is this, you might ask? Well, most of us look at it and immediately you're like, well, yeah, that's a dice tower. Well, it's a dice tower, but it's a dice tower from the 4th century. It's a Roman dice tower that they found it's the Weitweiss Freudstein dice tower. They found it in Germany, and written on it in Latin are the phrases, the Picts are conquered, the enemy destroyed, play in safety. And then on the other side, it reads, use happily, may you live well. So this is incredibly cool. What you'll probably notice, if you look close, you can see right down there, I'm kind of trying to put a little mouse over it there for you. There's a little bell on there. So that as the dice come rattling down through, they ring the bell on the way out. Very, very cool. There's a spot for 3 separate bells. The replica I have includes bells. So once I get it constructed and all put together, I will show it to all of you in action so you can see my replica dice tower. But yeah, that is just so cool to me and so funny, because one of the things I just love is how little people change over the years. I'm sure someone was insisting their friend use the dice tower because they were sure they were rolling the dice on purpose to get certain numbers. So they're like, I'm going to make a tower, and then we're just going to use that from now on, because it's the argument we always have at our place when we're gaming. All right. Oh, one thing I do want to do is pop out the chat so that in case anyone says anything, I'll actually see it, because right now it's way over on the side. Now, one thing I am going to try to do is do a better job of describing things. And the reason for this is that we're going to be trying to turn these into a podcast as well for folks who can't get on to watch and see everything. I'm going to try to make sure that I do a good job radio style of explaining what we're seeing. But yeah, and this tower that I have on screen right now is just a metal structure that was completely crushed when they found it, but they were able to restore it. And it's just very cool. If you look up online, the Weitweiss, let's see if I can get it right again, Weitweiss Freudstein dice tower, you'll be able to find anything about it you like. Or if you just do Roman dice tower, it'll come up. So anyway, very, very cool. Once I get it all together, I'll bring the tower back on the show. I'll also bring up who made it, because I do want to give them some props for creating such a very cool dice tower. I just didn't grab that paperwork on my way, and I don't want to get it wrong. So once I construct it again, I'll bring it out to show you guys. So yeah, that's my dice tower that I had to show you. So that's my mail call for the week. Game night news. The big thing for us is that we are getting into our Cool Name RPG adventure. More about that soon. I'm going to give you guys some updates on how our game is going, and very exciting about it. I know everyone else is waiting for the playtest book, so I'm sorry you have to wait. We have to test a couple more things before I send this out into the world to you, but you'll be getting it very soon. And we'll be talking a little bit more about the Cool Name design as we go through. One other thing that I promised I would talk about tonight, because I had some people who were asking me about it, Echo. I watched Echo on Disney Plus. It's the new Marvel Cinematic Universe adventure story that has the character Echo, who originally appeared in Hawkeye. I really enjoyed this show. It is not my favorite Marvel show, which is, just straight up, but I did enjoy it. I had a great time watching it. And of course, as seeing Kingpin come to life on screen so perfectly is just amazing, amazing stuff. But it was a very cool show to watch. I really enjoyed it. And it kind of brings up something I was just going to mention, is that sometimes we have so much wonderful stuff these days, stories, movies, books, games, that it's easy to forget how little we used to have. And that the reason why some of these things don't speak to some of us, but speak to others, is because there's plenty for everyone now. There's plenty of games for everybody, so that people who like one type of game can play that, people who like another can play that. There's plenty of Marvel shows now where we can like some of them and not like others, where every show doesn't have to be a success to be a win for us, right? So that's the thing that I absolutely love right now, is that we've hit a point with all of these things that if you're watching this, you probably love this stuff too, that there's enough out there for all of us. And I hope that people can really recognize that and appreciate the fact that, yeah, maybe that one's not for you, but it's okay because you can watch the next one and that one might be for you. And so just very cool, very fun. And just to reminisce a little for those of you who are of an age, the reality was when a superhero show came out, you went and saw it multiple times, probably in the desperate hope that the movie studio would do well with it and make another one, which they never did. So that was always a disappointment. And some of them were terrible because they were so embarrassed of the property they were making a movie out of. They had to change it horribly. And yes, some were just really, really bad. If you've ever seen the Captain America movie, I think came out in the 80s, it's something special. Yeah, it's something to watch sometime, maybe a back-to-back double feature with the Star Wars Holiday Special. So anyway, let's get on to talking about Cool Name RPG for a little bit. So I've been working on getting the rules into the state that they need to be in to share not only with all of you, not only with all of our backers, but also to share with the world at large. Because here's what we're hoping to do. We are hoping to take this and then share it once all of you have had a chance to take a look at it. First, we're going to get it to our backers. Then we're going to get it to all of our Discord folks and the folks who have been testing with us. And then we're going to put it out into the world at large. We're going to go to places like EN World and we're going to share it there. We're going to let people start taking a look at it, getting feedback from it, getting people to come up with ideas. The idea here is that we want to generate enough interest that people build cool stuff, because that's really one of the underlying benefits of Cool Name RPG is the ability to sort of mod. It's basically got modding built into it. And the advanced book or the expanded book is going to have modding instructions in there telling you how to do it, helping you to understand what the odds and the percentages are as you're working through. And so that's one of the things that we want to do. And part of why this next book is so important to us. And we're hoping we get it where we want it to be. Now, the big challenge for me is doing most of the writing. Now, granted, I'm writing it, but with a whole lot of input. But the challenge is how much is enough? How much is too much? How much is too little? And how do you hit that Goldilocks zone of rules? And again, we know from the start that we're not going to make everyone happy with what we make. That's impossible. But we're hoping we can make something really, really cool. And the question is for the core rules, which are going to be people's introduction to it, how simple or complex should it be? Now, when we first put out the very first playtest, we only had 5 attributes. We had 3 physical attributes, mind and spirit. Purposely did that because we were just trying to keep it really simple, and people really wanted more. And we ended up with a total of 9 attributes. Now, is that the right amount? Is it the wrong amount? I think it's the right, because everyone had fun with it and it hit all of the key points for us as we were going along. But at the same time, I think that it's important to know that not everyone is going to need all of those for their style of play. Now, hopefully we'll be able to handle this with modules, but we still have to get these core rules right. And so one of the things we're trying to do is gauge what the right amount is. For defensive, do we want to have parry, block, and dodge? Or do we just want defense? With just defense, you lose a lot of color. You lose a lot of richness. One of the things we've been able to do so far is create a system where lots of attributes matter. We don't want a system where there are throwaway attributes. We want a system where lots of attributes matter, or more to the point, if you like a certain attribute, you can build a character around it. And that's super important to us. So for example, if you want a character who is all about the mind attributes, right? Your intellect, your creativity, your willpower, you want that sort of real mental muscle in your character. We don't want you to feel like there's not a place in the game for you, or that in half the situations of the game, you're not able to participate. And so we want to make sure that those options are available. And sometimes you have to have a little more to make that work, which is why, for example, we've got the 9 attributes. Now, the other aspect of this, for example, is we start looking at combat and wounds. Now, one of the #1 pieces of feedback we got from folks is that the wound system was too complex. It wasn't that they didn't like it. It wasn't that it wasn't good. It's just that it wasn't quite where it needed to be, and it kind of got in the way more than it was fun to play with. So we did end up pulling that out, but we've had to still include some fashion of wound system because that's how our death and dying works, right? Vitality is simply how much you stay on your feet and how well you're able to fight. The wound system represents when you are in mortal danger, and that's key. So we do have to still have that there, but we have gone through and pulled some of it out. So for example, I'm very sad to see wound severity go because I personally thought it was super cool. And it will be a rules module that people can add, but didn't really work for most people. And so that's an example of where, well, that's a little too much. Now you take it out completely, and if it's just hit points, it's not quite enough to give that richness that people are looking for in their stories. That's different from what you're getting when you play D&D. And that is an important part, not just a difference for difference sake, but if we're not different, then why not just play D&D, right? It's got to give you a different experience. So that's a great example of this whole idea of what's too much and what's too little, and where's that perfect sweet spot in the middle. Now, the other thing that I like to think about when I'm doing these is not just where the sweet spot is, but how do you create a rule system that lets the players and the game master tweak it and tune it to what they want it to be. There are ways that you can put in rules that if you ignored them, the game still continues to work. If you listen to them, if you include them, it will actually add some cool richness to your story and you'll really enjoy it a lot. On the other hand, if you leave them out, the adventure keeps rolling. And that's one of the key design elements that I've been looking at throughout this. Why I've done so much math for this is that you have this entire system where you can drop pieces off, but we still need to get that sweet spot in the middle. So when people start playing, they know what to do. We want to give people freedom, but we have to give them guidance. Steve Long made some really great points about this in his comments, just about the idea that with too much openness, sometimes you leave people uncertain on what their options are, because the reality is that we're not there. We're not in the story. We're not in the adventure. And we do need something to sort of ground us in what this reality is. And so as we work through it, we want enough things there to sort of give you an understanding of how much danger am I in? How hurt am I? What is my level of risk? What can I try safely versus what looks really scary and difficult to pull off? So that's part of what we're looking at here is how do we go about doing that? How do we bring that out and hit the right balance as we go across? Another area where this is very important is magic. Now, with the magic system, as it stands today, it's going to be quite open, and it's going to be more akin to using your physical abilities than learning a rote spell. Now, I'm not saying there's not room for rote spells in the game, and that's one of the things that I think people will be able to write some beautiful mods of. But what we're looking at doing is creating a magic system that is more multi-use, the one where the wizard doesn't say, I happen to know magic missile, so I can help you, but rather says, I'm going to summon some arcane energy and throw it at my enemy and try to destroy them. It gives you some freedom and some creativity in the way that you play your character and you tell your story without being so wide open that you just don't know where to turn next. There also have to be some limitations, because if you start talking about a magic system, the whole idea of too little is if you can do anything with it, then why would you ever do anything else? So you have to look at that. What are the costs going to be? How do you apply a cost to an open magic system? You know, these are the things that have been the biggest struggle for me as I'm going through. And I'm really going to be counting on a lot of you to tell me, like, did we hit it? Are we balanced two-way, one way or the other? Would you like to see more of something or less of something, right? The other thing that I'm looking at is, you know, we do have a very clever, mathematically sound system today, but we also have a system that I want to be really cautious about, because the reality is that I don't want people to start reading and just go like, I don't get it. It's just like too many, like I'm looking at the gears inside the clock, right? You want to see it from the outside. You want to understand it from the point of view of, how do I do cool stuff? How do I use this to have fun and to do really cool things? So I don't really have great advice on this other than what I'm talking about, right? I mean, but I told you I'd bring you along on this journey, and this is my current dilemma, is this whole idea of what is too much and too little and just right in the middle. One other place I did want to talk about was on MOs, which are modus operandi, the kind of like classes or your character type, right? we'll go with classes. You understand what I'm trying to say. So they're kind of like your classes. How much do we put there? We've left it pretty wide open in terms of focus and specializations and giving players an option. But should we add other things like you get a bonus to this type of an action, or you get to add it to your initiative score, or you get to add your score to your this type of defense? Those sorts of things help you to create a very rich, interesting MO. But at the same time, they start to pin you down because you're like, well, if this guy has this, do they need that? Do I have to put this over here? So again, it's all about that balance, and we're just not going to know until all of you try it because we'll have our own opinions, but it's not just about us. So yeah, that's the kind of the story from the front at the moment. I don't have a whole lot more to share than that, except to say that we are going to be releasing a new version of the website very soon. Matt Everly's been working away on this. I would show it to you tonight, but we are going to have to wait one more week for that. But the new website, which includes the online wiki version of the rules. And so we're going to be taking the rules that I'm working on and putting them in there, and you'll be able to access them on the site anytime you need them, anytime you want to look at them. This is the wiki that we unlocked with our stretch goals. And so that's going to be very cool as well. And so that's coming along. So I have a couple more things. It's not going to be a very long show tonight. I'm just going to let you know up front. I apologize if you're not getting your money's worth of the Mechanical Muse Live tonight, but I just don't have too many more things to talk about tonight. But I did want to tell you a few more things. We do have a Patreon at Mechanical Muse, and you can find that on the ataltus.com website. But one of the things that we're doing is we're putting all of our books into an online system where you can access them, kind of like D&D Beyond type of a thing. And any of our patrons will be able to access those books at a certain level. And so more about that coming soon. We just worked out the whole permission system. Those of you who are patrons of the Patreon will get more information soon, and I'll fill you in on that. You'll be getting your access information. All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about tonight is a little bit of RPGs. I call it a classic review because these are books that have been out for a long time, but a number of them were worked on by Janelle Jacques, who recently passed, a game designer, just an incredible game designer and illustrator and a giant in our industry. And she worked on not only role-playing games, but she worked on things like the ColecoVision renditions of Donkey Kong and Pac-Man. I mean, the stuff that she worked on is just huge. Look up her Wikipedia page because it's amazing. So I wanted to talk about a series of books that she did a fair amount of work on called the City Books. Now, these City Books by Flying Buffalo are absolutely one of my all-time favorite series of books. Now, they came out years ago, but you can get them on DriveThruRPG for like $4.95 each, the PDF. I mean, you should definitely grab these because I can't tell you how many times the many locations in these books have appeared in my games. What they are is just a series of locations that you can use in your adventure. Most of them are, as per the name, city book. They're city locations, but we're talking taverns and shops and blacksmiths and museums and every sort of thing you could think about. And each one is themed. There's Deadly Nightside. There's the Sideshow book. There's the Uptown book. There's Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker. I mean, these are just wonderful books. And some of these things have appeared in my campaigns over the years. My friends now are going to finally discover that I didn't make all of these up. One of the things I wanted to share is from City Book 3, which is the Deadly Nightside book. They have a tavern in here called the Singing Frog Sanctuary, a tavern which played a very important role in our own Earth Dawn campaign many, many years ago. One of the fun things about Singing Frog, I mean, they've got full maps, everything you need. They describe the tavern keeper. They describe the people. In fact, I should point out that these books were a huge inspiration for Heroes of Thornwall. Heroes of Thornwall, our town book, really, these books, I kept thinking back to them, thinking, what did they do well and how can we do that too? It has one of my favorite gaming jokes in it, which is the Friday fish fly. Once a week, this peculiar test of strength, dexterity, and endurance, strong odors, is held. The object is to bounce a fish off the rebounding board towards the open side of the shuffle heist cage. If the fish rebounds within reach of the shuffle heist, 2 points are scored. And it just goes on to give you all the instructions for playing Friday Night Fish Fly. And they've even got the fish fly boards up on the map here so you can see where they're at when your players are playing. And I mean, just a host of wonderful things. Here's a bunch of information about the sewers and that you can drop in, and they drop in beautifully into any adventure and any campaign setting. Here's an interesting one, the Well of Justice with a secret chamber underneath. So do yourself a favor, go out and find the city books. They have them, like I said, on Drive-Thru RPG. I think you can probably buy them in print as well. But again, these are the old ones from originally from Flying Buffalo, and just wonderful books, good for any game that you'd want to have, and a huge inspiration to me in all the projects that I've worked on. Well, as I said, it's going to be a short one tonight, folks, but I will be back next week, and we'll have more things to talk about and some very cool stuff to share, especially as we get some of the website things up to show you guys, which we'll demo next week. And in the meantime, hopefully your games continue to go well. I hope that you guys keep having fun, and visit us over on Discord. We'll chat some more about Cool Name RPG. Talk to you guys all later.